Everything's coming up to Timberwolves. Yeah, in the zone. Simple dedication to the team when you're in the know. To Timberwolves. Yeah, in the soul. Lifting all the positivity for the Wolves to grow. So, where we going from here, man? We listen week to week to get the clearest to clear. Recaps, got that. Soundcap, got that. Team ads, got that. So tell me what they do not have, huh? How dare you? Foolish question to ask, but I don't mean to go brag. But boy, they got all the stats, and they could go all the way back from KG to Zerbiak. And all I'm saying is that the cast a one-stop shop for my Timberwolves. Timberwolves. Ain't a thing falling, everything's coming up. Timberwolves. Timberwolves. Falling from the autumn, ain't nobody gonna stop them. It's the Timberwolves. Timberwolves. Phonies, you can spot them, they the sheep under their clothes. Timberwolves. Timberwolves. Talk a lot about them, y'all don't really know. Let's go.
Welcome into another Everything's Coming Up Timberwolves podcast, a matinee edition of the Everything's Coming Up Timberwolves podcast. That's what happens when you hit spring break and everybody's home, and yeah, it's just what happened. That's just what happens. My name is Gabe Anderson, and I'm joined as always by Chris Emerson. Chris, how we doing?
Feel a little under the weather today. I don't know if it's the spring melt, some allergies. I don't know what it is, but you know, I'll suffer through a sniffle.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of weather, if you're not living here in Minnesota, not bad. The melt is beginning, which is nice to see. Actually, I saw last year at this time, I remember during the first week of the tournament, I was out on the golf course. So just to kind of show you where we were last year. And of course, we're also joined by Jared Good. Jared, how we doing?
Doing wonderful. This is like my Super Bowl. I love the March Madness tournament the next couple days here. It's always fun to sit down and watch 16 games from 11 in the morning to 11 at night. It's a big tradition for me. Something I love to do every single year. So this is actually my favorite time of the year. Outside of the allergies that are also getting me, Chris. I've noticed that I'm carrying some nasal spray with me with all this whatever's floating around with this melt that we're talking about here. But other than that, we're good, man. Timberwolves look good. Let's go, man.
Absolutely. And of course, T-Wolves playing the one and only LeBron James tonight. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Cards on the table. I'm excited because I will be in attendance. I love LeBron. That's my guy. Anyway, so let's talk about it. The thing that everyone's talking about now, I know maybe it takes a little mustard off of it because Kyrie did the same thing the night after, but Karl Anthony Towns goes for not 50, not 55, 60 points. Chris, talk about that performance a little bit. What amazed you the most about it?
It was just good to see. It was good to see him being aggressive. Yep. Consistently obviously the third quarter was a big thing, and there was some fluke involved. Like he went for 24 points versus Zach Collins in like 6 minutes of play or something like that. And Zach Collins, who was like a 10-day pickup not too long ago. So, I mean, there's some of that, but still, it's good to have a guy who can drop 50 plus at any moment.
Right. It is, yeah. Jared, what do you think of that performance?
Obviously, it was a wonderful performance. I think the biggest thing for me is he did it on 61% shooting. Like it wasn't like he was just chucking. He was hitting. I mean, he was, but he was hitting them all too. So,
right.
It's always good to see a game like that. Like even like you said, Kyrie's game last night was also a super high efficient game. And like when we look at some of these big, massive games, sometimes you see a guy shoot 40 plus times. And that's where I get like, I mean, it's a little different for me. But yeah, he did it super efficiently, hit a lot of threes. To be honest, I thought it could have been closer to 70 if he didn't have such a quiet fourth quarter. I believe he was at 56 at the end of the third. I think he hit a technical and a three or something in the fourth, but it was actually a quiet fourth quarter for him. But it was a wonderful game, man. And a game that we needed to win, and we got it. So that's all that matters to me.
Chris, go ahead.
The only thing, I mean, if we want to talk about the game as a whole, I definitely had some issues with it.
Go ahead.
Cat's performance was amazing. And again, to have a guy who can go off and win you a game is wonderful. But I mean, if we want to actually look at it, he scored 60 points on amazing game, like by any metric, amazing game. And we won by 10 points versus a 12 seed. We gave up 140 points, and it took a 60-point effort to beat that team by 10 points. Like there's a little bit of fool's gold to that game for me. Like everybody was on such a high horse, but it's going forward as a team trying to get ready for a playoff push to be a real playoff team, not just some team who's, gets a participation award. It was a bad game, in my opinion. Malik Beasley, who's been averaging over the last 9 games before that, he was averaging 5 3-point makes a game over the last 9 games. And since in the last 3 months, last 90 days, he was number 2 in the NBA in 3-pointers made and number 1 in percentage out of any of those people, more than Steph Curry. Steph Curry is the only one that's made more. So, I mean, this is the most prolific 3-point shooter in the last 3 months. And he got 1 shot up in that game in 20 minutes. And, that's not a knock really on him, because the way he gets his buckets is off ball movement, is off coming off screens and having someone kick him the ball, is off drive and kick, is off people being unselfish and the ball floating around the perimeter. That wasn't happening. So that was a big bad. Like, he needs to be good. We've been saying this all year, is we need somebody other than our big 3 to step up if we're going to do anything. And then speaking of the big 3, you got Anthony Edwards going for 5 points. He shot 7 times. Other guys that shot 7 or more in that game were J-Mac, Patrick Beverly, Noel, Nathan Knight, and Prince. Those are not the guys you want shooting the same amount as Anthony Edwards. So we got to get those guys clicking by playoff times. It's not like, red flag, like everything sinking ship kind of thing. But we need Edwards and Beasley clicking by playoff time.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. And one guy that we won't have at least for a little bit, if you didn't click off of the game, Jaden McDaniels is out for at least 2 weeks. What do you guys think? How big of a hit is that? And we'll start with you, Jared. Is that a huge thing, some we can overcome, or do you think this is a pretty fragile team and this one will hurt?
I think we'll be okay, but it'll still hurt. Obviously, you don't want to lose a talent piece. I don't want to contradict myself here a little bit, but I think that there's capable players that can step into his role. And we've seen it before with like Prince and stuff, but we've talked about this a couple times on the podcast with Finch running his guys out there late. Like, this game was already in hand when this had happened. And the first time it happened with Anthony Edwards, and he seemed to be fine the next day. Well, he's kind of got a lingering injury now. I think he's hurt. I think he's been playing hurt. He doesn't look like his normal self. He hasn't played well in at least 2 weeks. It's been a long time. So I think that this is something that maybe this will be the one where Finch is like, okay, I got to get these guys off the floor at the end of the game, because I think this is the one that is going to stick in his mind, because now it's happened twice, and you're seeing Edwards still with this lingering injury from about that time frame as well, and then now you have Jaden gone too. I think this is definitely going to be an eye-opening one for Finch, because I think he got away from the Heat on the first one because Edwards has still been playing.
Yeah, I think so too. And my big thing on that is, now you can argue that they play different positions, but Leandro Balmero, Jake Layman on the bench, Jaden McDaniels in the game right there. Switch out I don't care position-wise. It didn't matter. The Spurs had already waving the white flag with about 3 minutes left, which me and my dad were talking about it. That seemed like pretty early to wave the white flag, in my opinion, in a 12-point game, when particularly not only a 12-point game, but a 12-point game where, like, people like we're hitting shots. Like anyone could get hot at a particular time. I was intrigued by what Pop was doing, but yeah, I mean, Jake Layman, Balmero, put him in there. If they get hurt, no offense to either of them, I've heard they're great people, but if they get hurt, it's not that big a deal. Chris, what do you think? Did Finch make a mistake here?
You know, it's always easy to second guess. I mean, I'd rather have taken him out. What I thought was interesting is right when Karl Anthony Towns got off the bench to come back in the game to get some pad his stats a little more for the record, that's when Pop brought in all his bench players. So I think it was almost like, dude, what are you doing? Why are you putting this guy back in to chase some points? The game's over kind of thing. So that was maybe Pop being Pop. But and a bigger thing about Jaden, he's being reevaluated in 2 weeks. So it's very possible he's going to be out until the playoffs, which is not a good thing because he was just getting into a rhythm. He was just being able to take it to the hole, shoot the mid-range and the three. I mean, he had probably had his best stretch of basketball where you look at him and you're like, oh, I see the potential to keep growing to something bigger. This was the most important time for that. But in true everything's coming up Timberwolves fashion, I'm going to go everything's coming up Timberwolves on this take. This will give us time where we'll be able to hopefully see Nas and Cat together now, because that's one of our bigs. That's one of our bigs that's going to be off. So hopefully we'll be able to see Nas and Cat and evaluate that, and maybe they'll get clicking. And maybe we'll see Prince and Cat get some added minutes together. And those are two guys with Nas and Prince that we need to evaluate before this summer to figure out what we're going to do contract-wise. So this is going to be a huge 2 weeks for those two guys. If let's say that they both succeed and do well next to Cat, getting these added minutes, and Jaden comes back healthy, and then everything's coming up Timberwolves' way, that's added fuel for the playoffs. Now we can roll two bigs with Nas and Cat because they've got more experience together when teams go small. Like if we end up playing Golden State, or if we need more rebounding versus Memphis, we can put those two guys together. And maybe getting this look at Prince, we'll evaluate if we want to sign him for another deal this offseason or just let him walk. Because to me, it's real. I mean, I'm on the fence. Like if I'm signing him after what he's done season long, it's going to be a pretty small contract.
For sure. Yeah, I would agree. And yeah, guys are going to have to step up. Even guys like Jalen Noel and, like you said, Malik Beasley, who had a one of those performances that you don't want. They're one of those historic in the wrong way performances. They're going to need to step up in his absence. Someone attacking the rim. Someone. I almost think that Chris Finch should have learned from the first one. Like particularly the first one with Anthony Edwards, one of your cornerstone players. I feel like he should have learned and not had Jaden McDaniels out there. I don't know, but that's just my general. Yeah. And could that be now? Obviously, fans who don't watch the Wolves every single day won't care. But could that be one of the, because they're talking about a potential of Chris Finch as coach of the year? Could that be one of the blemishes on his track record of not pulling the players when you need to? I don't know. It's possible though.
I think he's a long shot for coach of the year. I mean, not a long shot. I think he should be in the top 5 for sure. I don't know how it couldn't go to JB Bickerstaff, to tell you the truth, what he's doing in Cleveland with that team being so young and so injured. I mean, losing like all of your starting guards, basically playing with a mash unit and a strange mash unit of like multiple 7-footers, and still just bodying teams week to week. So yeah, we'll see how that ends up.
Yeah. And by the way, it looks like, Chris, what you were talking about during draft time, Evan Mobley looks like the real deal. So he called you a draft guru, but That was a pretty good call on that.
There was a couple picks that we talked about that we were pretty right on the money with. I know a lot of us didn't like Suggs, and to me, Suggs looks like he's okay, but I mean, I've also kind of looked at his
number one.
Yeah, and I mean, we pretty much all nailed it with Mobley. We all loved him. Obviously, Cade, we were kind of neutral on, but I know it's kind of funny to like look back at some of our earlier podcasts. We did a draft one that was kind of fun, but also there's always good information on here. Everybody always wants to try and get on here with us, including my dog now. We got just about every single guest you can imagine trying to get on here, but it's definitely a good time. Looking towards a little bit more towards what Chris was saying about how our rotation changes with Jaden. If you're a Taurean Prince guy, I think you're going to see close to 30 minutes going forward. I think he's going to get the real shot to fill this role, and I probably think that's who it should be. And we've talked about Naz maybe getting more minutes pretty much since the beginning of this podcast, but it almost seems like 22 is like Naz's peak rotationally for me, anyways. So I don't think you're going to see him mixed in there more. Might he get a few more minutes? Absolutely. But I don't think they're like when Finch looks at the team, he's like, all right, time to insert Nas, 30 minutes. Here we go. I don't think that's going to be
right
in the plans. But, it's one thing that's crazy about Nas is like, even though he plays, 15 to 20 minutes, he's damn good when he's in there. I think there's still I don't know if it's a conditioning thing or if it's just a rotational piece, but I think you'll see him capped out around 22, and I think you'll see Prince have the ability to play 30, 35.
Now, could this be an emergence like we saw just out of necessity, a little bit more Nathan Knight, a little bit? I don't know. To me, when I saw Nathan Knight out there, what was it, against the Spurs, yes, he made some baskets, but he seemed a little lost defensively and rightfully so, right? I mean, like, you don't play for all these games, and all you get in is non-meaningful minutes, and he plays a completely different role that he did with the Iowa Wolves. Like, he's kind of their go-to, him and Balmero. But, I mean, he seemed a little lost defensively. What do you think, Chris? What do you think? Do you think Nathan Knight will get a little more shine just because of necessity?
I mean, it all depends on Vanderbilt, like if he's going to stay out. I mean, if Vanderbilt's out and J-Mac's out, I mean, that's 40 minutes to be divvied up somewhere, So we're going to have to figure out where that goes. Supposedly we're looking on who's out there as a free agent still to try to pick up somebody to help because we still have a roster spot, but we'll see.
That's why I wouldn't now. I know I don't know if he's on a team right now, but I didn't mind Greg Monroe. Like
I do not think he's on a team right now.
Yeah. Like I wouldn't mind, like obviously not to play 40 minutes or something, but as a spot, like 10, for example, remember 10, in the Spurs game, they didn't even go back to Nathan Knight. They went to Jaden and they went completely small, and we kind of got we kind of got exposed during those minutes. Just throwing someone like Greg Monroe for a little bit, just see what happens. Now, I know probably what he did against, the Knicks and Boston, those two games were probably an outlier. He probably can't do that every night, but I don't know, just a big presence to be out there. What do you think, Jared? Do you think there's anybody we could sign or anybody like on a 10-day or something that could maybe fill in a little bit for Jaden?
That's a good question. I think first off, I think Chris is right. The last game that Greg Monroe played in was with Portland, I believe. I'm looking it up here right now, and it was February 14th. So that 10-day would have been expired already, and I believe that he is currently a free agent. I don't know. It seems like this is one of those. If you're anybody in COVID, especially with COVID protocols, I feel like if you were ever anybody, you have already been ran through a program or picked up by a team on a 10-day just because of all the protocols and stuff that was going on. So I really don't know off the top of my head if there's really anybody available. But but we
Hard to
might
add a
need
guy.
somebody. Yeah,
Okay.
it's you're
At this
12
time of
games
year.
away from making a playoff run, so
Right.
at least the Timberwolves are. But I'm sure they're looking into it. I mean, I definitely don't think they haven't looked, because, like you said, we need to fill some minutes, and not only like fill minutes, but like, because now you're like, say we blow a team out and we're up by 30, and you're forced to play a player that you normally wouldn't have out there in blowout run because you just don't have bodies. Like sometimes you just need to put the scrubs in, and if you ain't got enough scrubs, someone's got to stay, and that's where we're talking about, these type of situations that people really don't think about in live terms, I guess.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Go ahead.
When you're talking about us getting kind of blown out there when we had to go smaller, which is something that Finn's been doing lately is when Vanderbilt was healthy, is going J-Mac over Vanderbilt sometimes down the stretch at power forward. But one thing that I saw that was interesting in the first half, we went to drop coverage, which was the type of defense where Cat, instead of kind of moving horizontally to slow down the point guard, he just kind of slowly backpedals to give space and then challenge at the rim. It's with like most big shot blocking centers, that's the kind of defense that they play. And in that time, we gave up 73 points, which sounds terrible, except for we gave up 140 in the game. So it's really not that much different. But that style of defense, I hope we just don't try again. It's just not for us. We've proven it over the last 6 years that Cat cannot play drop coverage. So that's the trouble, is whoever we bring in, our defense is a little different than most. So I don't know how you're going to be able to get them up to speed in time.
Mm-hmm. Jared, go ahead.
I was just pulling up some free agent names that are still available, and this is what I got. The best one that I see is Al-Farouq Aminu, former Wake Forest. Granted, he's 31 years old, but I would maybe take a run at him.
Similar type player too.
Tariq Black, another old guy, 30 years old. Obviously not going anywhere, but he could probably play some minutes. Willie Cauley-Stein, maybe. I don't really think.
I've always liked him, but for some reason the NBA doesn't. So maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, those are just the type of names just to bring up that we would possibly. That's who's available. So, but I don't know. It's a murky time of the year, man. It really is. It's tough that it's happening right now because we are right in the swing of things now. Right. The Jazz have also lost a bunch of games lately and are sinking down towards us. So it's going to be a real interesting run to see where we land, because we're looking at worst 7 and at best 4 maybe, which is crazy, but.
Which I think is extremely optimistic. Which
it is.
Right.
We would have to run the table, and some other teams would have to lose. But
an interesting note that I saw earlier today. It'll be this: Jamal Murray, very close to return, being assigned to their G League team. That with how Jokic is playing and how Jamal Murray potentially can play, that scares me a little bit. I don't know.
And Michael Porter is coming back now.
Porter, yeah.
If that team can get moving and get a little bit of rhythm between those guys, they're probably my favorite in the West.
Yeah, I love that team, man. Just alone how good Jokic is playing in general. You throw in the guy that led you to the Western Conference Finals and Michael Porter Jr. That's a tough team to beat.
And we talked about it last time we were on, just chasing other teams, but man, these teams are all still winning. Nuggets grinded out a win against the 76ers, one that being a Timberwolves fan, you think that, okay, we'll steal one here. And then now, like tonight, we got Dallas, who hasn't seemed to have lost in forever. I think I looked up their last 16 games. I think they're like 13-3 or something crazy. But now they get Brooklyn without Kyrie tonight because of whatever is going on there, and it's like, man, I just want to see one of these teams, lose a game that they're supposed to win. But then again, you have the Nuggets against Washington tonight, and it's just like we keep winning, but every other team around us keeps winning. So, I mean, it's getting tough, man.
Need a
Good
big
team
night.
Start winning.
Need a big night from the Unicorn if we're gonna. If the Wizards are gonna have a chance. So let's talk about now. I know we usually save the upcoming schedule for the end of the podcast, but since it is what it is, I think we should talk about it now, just because it's a rough stretch coming up, and I'll pull it up here. I'll share my screen with the upcoming schedule here. But so we got the we got the Lakers tonight, which is winnable. Obviously, you never know with LeBron, and then a tough stretch. You got the Bucks, Mavericks, Suns, Mavericks, Celtics, Raptors, Nuggets, and then it gets a little winnable. But then you start getting the end of the road. I mean, particularly without Jaden McDaniels, how are the Wolves?
That's 7 hard ones in a row right there.
Right, but it's
the
also. Go ahead.
The only good news is we're playing the teams that we're chasing. So if we can find ways to win, I mean, we're playing the teams we want to be playing because, granted, we'd love to play OKC every night, but, in the swing of things, with the heart of the playoffs around the corner, you want to beat these teams to say that, we are better than you. We didn't just luck out because you played somebody that was good.
Now, I will say this, just going down the schedule, we did beat the Bucks. That was earlier in the season. Now, I don't think they had Drew Holiday, correct? And they definitely didn't have Brook Lopez.
Yeah, I remember Chris saying that team was, not kind of a fool's gold win because it was, I think, Giannis and Middleton, and then they were missing, they were running out like Grayson Allen and Cavani didn't have Brook Lopez. So I remember specifically Chris saying, I wouldn't get too excited over that one. And the Bucks are playing pretty good right now and are at full strength for the most part.
Okay, then you got the Mavericks, which obviously, if we're gonna make a run at 17, we got to beat the Mavericks at least once. At least once.
We're a better team than the Mavericks when we're healthy. Sure.
Right. And then so the Suns. I mean, I was at the game. We stuck with the Suns at full strength, but obviously the Suns, I mean, it speaks for themselves. Number 1 seed in the Western Conference and the overall best record. I don't think they have Chris Paul right now, I believe. Jared, go ahead.
Yeah, we've talked about it a few times on here, but man, those 2 losses to the Magic look brutal right now. We talked about it all year that we were going to remember, the first one that we lost to them, and then now this most recent one. Man, it really stings to be dropping games to that team. Unfortunately, it is what it is, I guess.
I will say, if we would have beat that Magic team, ran away with it, we would have lost to Miami and probably San Antonio.
I think so,
because we needed that wake-up call. And the funny thing is, I said that, and people thought I was kind of crazy. And then D'Lo, in a post-game, said the exact same thing. He said, we needed that loss, because almost verbatim what I said a couple of days earlier. He said, because we played nobodies. Like, we played a bunch of teams that were either tanking or, were twice as good as, and had a big stretch, and we were acting like we were king of the world, and we needed that loss. So, yeah, I mean, sometimes those losses are important. And it comes down to, like, is this fight for seeding really that important? Like, I truthfully don't care. As long as the last 3 games of the season, everybody's clicking and we're going into the season hot. Like, I'm not that worried about seeding as long as it's not out of the playoffs.
Here's the thing. Given that Paul George or Kawhi Leonard don't come back, I like our position home game against the Clippers. That's all I'll say. I like those odds. Now, obviously, it's the Timberwolves, right? So weirder things have happened, but I like the odds. 1 game scenario, home game against the Clippers, and all we got to do is beat Amir Coffey and Reggie Jackson.
And even if we lose that game, we get a home game versus New Orleans then also, I believe.
Right. We've talked about it. New Orleans.
It's tough, but I mean, if you're gonna be a playoff team, you're gonna have to beat tough teams.
Right, that's true.
Those are 2 teams. Those are two teams I absolutely hate because they always seem to have our number. The Clippers always seem to somehow beat us. What doesn't matter who's playing, and then same with the Pelicans, man. Like I know, Gabe has been saying this for the past 3 or 4 weeks. I don't want anything to do with Brandon Ingram because he destroys us.
Right. And I will say the Pelicans have been sliding a little bit lately. I think they're 5-4 since the All-Star break. But I guess just on paper, Ingram and McCollum would be tough. But then on the other side, let's say the Lakers lose or Lakers win. Then you got LeBron and potentially AD. So, I mean,
I would like to get at least 6. I would just love a 7-game series, no matter who it's against. I just, being Minnesota fans, we've seen 163 multiple times with the Twins, and we've seen what we had the extra game for the Wolves for playoff.
That just happened to be game 82.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I thought they added an extra game one year, but it's like it seems to be, to me anyways, like we get in those kind of like situations where you're like, oh, you got one shot to get in, and then we don't. It's kind of the run the course. That's just how it is here. But I think this year is very different. I plan on maybe even winning a playoff series this year.
Yeah, why not? Why not? I mean, obviously, I'd be all for it. Who would? Should we go break down first round matchups? Maybe we've done this a little bit before, but Memphis, Suns, Warriors. Who do you not want to play?
I want to play Memphis.
I agree.
I don't want to play the Suns.
The team I'd be the most worried about would be the Warriors.
I agree.
I mean, are we talking Chris Paul's back and healthy? Because I don't know if he will be. If he's healthy, I don't really want the Suns either. But I would say the Warriors are who I'm the most worried about, and I would say Memphis is who I'm the least worried about.
Yeah, I would agree.
Which especially since Draymond Green said they're winning a championship just yesterday. So I mean, right there, they're winning it. So that means you can't beat them.
Right. So, that's true.
There's that.
That's true. So let's see. Let's talk about tonight's game.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Tell me if this is a crazy idea. So Malik Beasley is generally ineffective, like not effective at all when Cat, D'Lo, and Edwards is healthy. He's just not. Like if you go back and look at the stats, whenever those guys are healthy, he's terrible. Whenever he's filling in for one of those guys, like as a starter or as a guy who's getting their shots, he's a monster. How crazy is this a crazy idea to say start Malik Beasley over Anthony Edwards, play Anthony Edwards 20 minutes a game instead of his 25, 30, because whatever's going on with him isn't good right now. So let him come in and just be almost like a Noel, where every time he touches it, he's just trying to score, just every single time, like nothing else. And then let Beasley play off Cat and D'Lo, who seem to be kind of in their groove right now, and let Beasley be just the flamethrower on the edge.
I think for a short term, like maybe 3 or 4 games, that would be okay. Maybe to just give Edwards an opportunity to find himself.
Yeah, right.
It's not, but long term, like I think
not for years or anything.
No, not even. I'm saying like the rest of the season. Like I don't think that's going to work out. But if it fixes them, if you do it for a couple games, yeah, absolutely. But I also think that's one of those things where you would have to sit down and ask Anthony Edwards if he would be okay with it, because that dude is he's special, man. He is. He hasn't looked like it recently, but he's special, and he's a huge part of this future. So I definitely think if we go down that road, I don't think it's crazy, but I would definitely sit down with him and say, what do you think about this? Because I respect your ability on this team.
I would assume from what I've seen of Anthony Edwards, he's like, hey, whatever's best for the team kind of guy. Yeah. Like I see that being him. But the thing that I'm worried about Anthony Edwards is he's had like 1 20-point game in his last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, in his last 10. He's scored over 20 once. And there's, couple of single-digit games in there where he's playing 30 minutes and getting 5, 30 minutes, getting 6, another 5 point in 30 minutes. Like, he's not effective right now. He's not doing much. And I don't know if it's rhythm, if it's knee, I don't know what it is. If it's his knee, like, we're going to need to rest him more if that helps it. I don't know if it's just a time thing where rest isn't really helping. I don't know, but we're not going to do much if he's not scoring 20 points a game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it's kind of like what the Wolves did last year, right? But not with Anthony Edwards, but particularly with D'Angelo Russell, when he would come off the bench a little bit. And so, yeah, maybe you show him some old tape of last year's success with that and say, hey, this is kind of the – now, I know D'Lo and Anthony Edwards are different players, definitely. Right. But maybe, like, if you show them, like, hey, this is what it did for D'Lo, maybe this is what it can do for you for a little bit. I don't know. It's an interesting question.
I just think that Beasley is not playing well with those guys. So if he could move to the starters, he could be playing better, possibly, worth a shot. And Edwards is not playing well with the starters. Maybe he could move to the bench, and instead of having a guy like Noel as your main get the ball and go to it, or I mean, he wasn't even the guy, but when J-Mac was healthy, but having a guy like Edwards be the hammer on that second unit, that could be deadly.
Jared, go ahead.
Yeah, we kind of talked early in the year about our big three scoring 20, a game, and we've kind of transitioned basically based on the play Edwards, but he hasn't been playing well. I think you can into that category with Malik Beasley and Taurean Prince. If one of those three guys isn't getting us 20 and Cat doesn't get us 60, I mean, we're going to struggle. Like, we need, no disrespect to Anthony Edwards, but he's put himself in that situation where he's now got to be the third guy, or, maybe somebody else. Maybe Beasley's got to score, like, we need those points with how we play. And it sounds like we got to remember that the Timberwolves play at an extremely fast pace. So when people get upset that, teams score 120, 100, I necessarily don't, because if you look in a lot of those games, it's a pace of play thing. Now, granted, San Antonio shot pretty well, but like when we play the Hornets, for example, another team that plays extremely fast, like, we want to play that game, and I don't necessarily get mad at the defense for it, because sometimes that's just the flow of the game. But if we're going to play that way, we need a third guy to score 20. Right.
Yep. Or at least be a threat. At least be a threat of 20.
Right.
And that's the other thing. I honestly think, now I know there's some going on with the knees or whatever. I almost think that there's potential at least for Anthony Edwards to snap out of this struggle at any time. Like, I think he's that talented. Like, we've seen, he'll go for like 10, and then out of nowhere he'll go for like 40, like he did earlier this year against the Phoenix Suns. So I don't know. I don't know. I think he could pop out of it at any time. Maybe. Who knows? Maybe it's tonight. You got the primetime Lakers in there. You got LeBron. He wants to shine out a little bit. He could be snapping out of it tonight, but I don't know. We'll see.
Have we heard about Vanderbilt tonight? Is he playing?
Let me look.
One thing that's going to be interesting to see with this Lakers team is Dwight Howard is out, or has been out on personal reasons. It's very possible that they're going to have like a 6'6" guy guarding Cat, or it's going to be LeBron, or it's going to be Carmelo. Like, they've got nobody to defend Karl Anthony Towns.
So, most recent status report. Now, this is from yesterday, but looks like Edwards is probable, Beverly questionable, McLaughlin questionable, Reed questionable, Vanderbilt questionable. So, and then obviously McDaniels out and McKinley out. So,
we could really use Vanderbilt.
We could. What'd you put, Jared, Bev, and Vando?
Good game time decision.
Oh, yeah, okay. I just wanted to make sure you saw it when you were announcing it. But those were but everything you listed off, I have the same report too. A lot lot of guys that are very questionable, it seems like, but we'll see.
That time of the year, man. A lot of miles on these tread this time of year.
I mean, and of course, we should also mention that LeBron is a game time decision tonight as well, although he's a game time decision every single night he plays, so I wouldn't worry about it.
Okay. Just personally, if LeBron's not playing, I will be pretty pissed, but that's okay. I mean, I'd rather the Wolves win, but come on, it's LeBron. I want to see LeBron. I mean,
he's playing.
I've seen LeBron quite a few times there, and it's always interesting. I've watched him mostly versus the Timberwolves when it was bad Timberwolves years and good LeBron years, and which I guess is almost every year. And
you know what you're saying, yeah.
And it was always like LeBron would just toy with us. Like you would see him just making fancy passes the first 3 quarters. You're like, oh, we're sticking it to LeBron. He's got like 12 points. Like, oh, he's nothing. And then the 4th quarter, he'd drop a 20-piece to end up with 35 points. And you're like, damn, like he's got 35? Like it's the quietest 35 you've ever seen, but just because he was, on cruise control.
Right. For sure. Yeah. I remember him back in the Cleveland years. Like they weren't even taking like the warm-up seriously. They were doing like alley-oop dunks and stuff like that. Like they knew it was a W. They knew they were about to win this game. So
that's just like that stretch of 6 games when we were taking on, the Pelican or taking on, all those trash teams that everyone was so fired up about us winning. Like, yeah, we knew in warm-ups that those were W's.
I want to ask you guys a quick question about the East. So I got the East standings pulled up right now. There's some really good teams, in my opinion, in the bottom of the East. You have the Cavaliers at 6, who I think are every good as the teams above them. And then you have the Nets are 8. Yeah. I mean, the Hawks, I think the Hawks are a dangerous team.
Dude, the Celtics at 5 might be the best team in the whole East.
Yeah, I don't know, it's crazy, but
that's going to be that whole Eastern Conference playoffs is going to be mayhem, absolute mayhem.
Here's the thing: I was thinking about this when we were playing the Heat. Now, I know the Heat are a great. They're first place for a reason, and if they get completely healthy, that is a lethal lineup. You got Lowry, you got Tyler Hero coming off the bench, which is astounding. You got Jimmy Butler, who's still Jimmy Butler. You got Bam Adebayo, great down low. Duncan Robinson, who could shoot off the bench. And then Victor Oladipo, if he gets healthy. I mean, that's a great lineup.
I saw him play. Well, not play, but I saw him when I was looking at the game. He's played like 15 minutes the past couple nights. I'm like, I forgot where this dude was. I forgot he even existed. And I'm like, holy shit, they got Oladipo now too. Like,
right.
Mark my word. The Heat will lose in the first round.
Really?
Yep.
Even if
they might have to play the Nets. So
exactly. Yeah. You might get the Nets, or you might get the Raptors, or you might get the Hawks. I mean, those are all good teams. You might get Cleveland. Shoot, you might get Boston. Who knows?
Yeah. There is in the East right now. There are
between 7 and 2,
3, 4, 5. Yeah, they're all within like 3 games of each other.
So it's like 3.
It's like our race, except it's on steroids because there's more teams involved over there right now. But
man, that's going to be if the standings stay the way they are. There's going to be some fun first round matchups. I mean, Heat, Nets, who knows? Bucks, Raptors, Sixers, Cavs, Bulls, Celtics. I mean, that's.
I'm telling you, that's a bloodbath.
Yeah, that's going to be good.
Those are 7-game series, like every last one of those, or at least 6,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So I think anything else to bring up, or should we go to?
It's about what I had. Just, all I want for Christmas is the Timberwolves to be healthy and rolling those last 3 games. I don't care what our record is. I don't care what our seed is. I want to see Anthony Edwards with 3 20-point games in a row. I want to see Prince shooting 35 to 40% from three in those last 3 games. I want to see a healthy Jaden McDaniels playing defense. I want to see Noel taking it to the hole aggressively, which is going to happen no matter what. I need to see that, I need to see us playing well. And if that's the case, man, we can make some noise.
I agree. Jared, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, so there's been many times on this podcast where we would, kind of bash a guy in a way and then he'd play really well. And it seems like almost every time that we like put our eyes on a certain player and kind of call him out in a way, and just talk about them, they seem to explode. So the 2 players that I'm looking at moving forward with this next couple weeks, Malik Beasley and Anthony Edwards. We need it from you. This is your guys' time to shine. Let's step it up and knock down the doors and get at least the 6th seed. I mean, I would like the 5, but I'll take the 6 too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think we get the 6 from Denver, or do you think we get it from Dallas if we get it?
Denver.
I don't know. With Jamal Murray coming back?
It might be from the Jazz, actually.
Yeah, it could be.
I'm thinking Dallas more at this point, but until Dallas starts losing, though, I guess it's hard to.
Ever since that Kristaps Porzingis and Dinwiddie trade, like Dallas has been unbelievable. They've been good.
Have they been playing real teams, or is it kind of like us?
No, they've been. I'm trying to remember the other day they've had like 3 or 4 games where they've just squeaked one out at the end. And
3-point win against the Celtics.
The Rockets, Knicks, they got blown out by the Knicks, but then they snuck out
by the Jazz.
That Kings game I watched, they blew that game. Yeah,
they beat the Warriors. Yeah, but that Warriors team was, I think, real shorthanded. But still, yeah, we got 2 games versus them. Let's get both of those, and then we'll see where we're at.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think we'll end it there. This is the Everything's Coming Up Timberwolves podcast. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss an episode on YouTube, and follow us on Spotify so you never miss an episode. And as always, go Wolves.